It's time once again to find out what happens when people stop being polite and start getting real. MTV recently announced The Real World Homecoming New York, a 6-episode reunion series featuring the original cast members: Eric Nies, Julie Gentry, Heather B. Gardner, Kevin Powell, Norman Korpi, Comeau, and Rebecca Blasband. Ahead of the premiere, People exclusively caught up with all 7 roommates, and they shared how it felt to step back into that iconic Soho loft nearly 3 decades later.
Now, that totally freaked me out because the last time we were back in the loft, all 7 of us obviously, was in 1992.
We're all getting back together, but we're all like in our 50s. So I think, the reaction is a little bit different at this age, but yeah, it was really cool.
I've described this as like, walking into a school that you've graduated from. That same sort of feeling that, it's very familiar, it's very nostalgic. So much has stayed the same, only you've changed.
To get to go back 29 years later and like be in your same space with your same people, it really doesn't happen. It was crazy.
Created for MTV by Jonathan Murray and the late Mary Ellis Bunham of Bunham Murray Productions, The Real World has been credited with launching the reality TV genre as we know it. Murray told us how the groundbreaking series came about.
My late partner, Mary Ellis, came out of daytime soaps, a master storyteller. I had come out of news and documentaries, and then of course MTV was the center of all things hip and cool. We pitched this idea of putting, at that time, 6 young people together in a house from different backgrounds and real diversity. And people you wouldn't normally live together with, because most of us seemed to, at that time, went through our little lives surrounded by people just like us. And we felt that there would be conflict as a result of that people would make mistakes with each other. But that conflict would lead to growth, and that growth would be our story arc.
The Real World was known for sharing culturally resonant stories like never before. In the reunion special, the 7 cast members will revisit the shocking moments and explosive issues that arose during their season and draw parallels to today's social climate.
Obviously, when the George Floyd, everything started going down in the spring, and somehow the articles started popping up, like race, like, oh, here we are. These things were on television on The Real World, like over almost 30 years ago, and we're still in this tussle with this whole scenario. And then MTV started to replaying some of the episodes. And then all of a sudden, I just started to notice a lot of like millennials who weren't even born just started to comment on us and what we were like. And I'm like, wait a second, you didn't live in a world that wasn't gay. Like all of a sudden, just a lot of things. And all of a sudden, Julie became like a demon. Like literally the whole course of what I remember and how the show was in the context of what the world was like then was all of a sudden flipped through this little lens of people seeing the real world somewhat for their first time against this whole new backdrop. And they were bringing this whole millennial stuff to it. And it kind of upset me. Like I wanted to have a voice to say, you don't know what it's like. There wasn't like gay people running around. There was nobody, there wasn't these things. I mean, the things that we came in, like we were in such a rare show in which it was like they wouldn't even tackle shows like subjects like this on 90210. Like you would never get something scripted like this ever to fly in 92. And then all of a sudden you're looking at the show from this other strange lens of today.
We had very heated conversations about race and racism. Norman was the first openly gay person to come out on national TV in that kind of way in real time. Lance did it on American Family, but it was like at the end of the show, Norman had to come into it, quote unquote, coming out of the closet. He was a pioneer, and the conversations that we had about social issues, I realize now we're pioneering. So many people, white, black, Latinx, Asian, different backgrounds have said, I never saw people talk about racism or race before. Even when Black Lives Matter exploded last year, guess what? I started getting messages from people about The Real World, our season. It was, I just didn't know the impact.
We were all aspiring artists, and you know, had interesting and substantive conversations, and we did things like going to, you know, political rallies and marches in Washington and things like that. It was not about, sort of hooking up in hot tubs and that kind of thing. It really wasn't. We were definitely doing something a little more, for lack of a better word, intellectual.
I started to think about the effect our show had on the young people watching, you know, and how they might perceive certain things that actually were edited a little bit, you know? And I thought, oh, you know, that's kind of the conversation, you know, maybe Eric and I had, or Kevin and I had, or whatever, you know, about sex or race or whatever. But, you know, our show was entertainment. It wasn't really there to teach. It wasn't a documentary. So, but what I realized really after the show, when I got the fan mail, is how deeply affected some kids were by it.
We are still talking about the same things. Like, how crazy is that? Like, those conversations really, the topics, I should say, really haven't changed much. They haven't changed much. All of it is so crazy. In fact, while we were there, a Black Trans Matter Lives movement, a parade went past the Loft. We could hear drums and everything beating on that. We were like, what was that? And we ran to the window and we were like, wow, gay rights, you know, Black Trans Lives Matter. That was happening. It happened to be Julie, Norman, and myself and Kevin in the living room at the time, going past this Loft at this moment. Like, I could have been any place in the world, but I was right there at 565 Broadway while this movement was happening. I was like, holy cow, next to the person who came out on television, you know, at a time where it was not cute. And Kevin, I was sitting next to Kevin too, who been talking about Black Lives Matter. And Julie and myself, who we both have friendships with Norman and Kevin and these topics. Like, that was the moment where I was like, wow, we're supposed to be here right now. Like, we are freaking supposed to be here. Like, this is powerful and it's crazy.
I think that the reunion episodes do for us is gives everyone an opportunity to show us how we've evolved, what we're doing now, what we've been doing since that time. And it's really, really incredible, because it's very rare, as you know, to get like, imagine when you were 13 years old, you know, someone recording your life for 3 months and then showing it. And then you have a chance to come back as a 30-year-old or 40-year-old and like reflect on that. It's really a unique experience.
Bringing the entire cast back together during a global pandemic was no easy task, but luckily, all 7 were on board and ready to reunite the TV family they created so many years ago.
The idea of these people coming back together, sort of telling their current story, but showing how that current story was impacted by that early experience together. I mean, it's so cool being able to go back and use that material. And in fact, MTV helped us get all the original raw tape out of storage. So we were actually able to show some things and give some perspective to things using material that we didn't use originally.
I was real concerned going back into this that, you know, it's a lot of younger people producing it, you know, that are kind of, and I was like, you know, y'all might be super disappointed. We keep up with each other. Like, you know, like my kids, they kind of get their feelings hurt a little bit because it seems like a family reunion to them that they're not invited to. They've grown up with them, you know? They don't know life without like Heather.
And so here we are, full circle again. And I've been saying this from the very beginning. There's a bigger purpose, there's a bigger reason behind all of this, and it will unfold. And I have the same exact feeling that I did 29 years ago.
Since we did this show, so many things have happened. We can't take our time for granted, and we are family. The 7 of us are family. No matter what, we are family. We're connected for life.
They still have that charisma. They still have that each with a unique experience and perspective. They still light up the screen.
For more on the Real World Homecoming New York, pick up this week's issue of People on Newsstands Friday.